Good afternoon, Ms. Rothert. I'm Judge Woodland, and I really appreciate you being here to address the court.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I appreciate the opportunity to address the court today. I will be speaking quickly because I know that the court has time constraints. It is of the utmost importance that everyone realizes I am not the only victim in this case. I am merely the tip of the iceberg. First and foremost is Haley, my biological granddaughter, who I took in at 3.5 months old and then adopted at 2.5, making her my legal daughter. She witnessed this from my car directly across from the ATM. There are no adequate words to describe the true impact of the crime inflicted on me or Haley the evening of April 5th, 2024, when I was simply making an attempt to deposit a check into my bank account at an ATM that I have used on a regular basis for many years. I was trying to save a little bit of time because the following morning I was going to be going in the opposite direction to watch one of my grandsons march in the Daffodil Parade. Instead of making that deposit, I was shot twice in my thigh and once in my stomach, resulting in 8 open wounds due to entry and exit by either bullets or bullet fragments after one bullet hit and broke my femur. I tried to explain to Kolby I could not take $1,000 out of the ATM that he was demanding. There was no reason for him to shoot me after he shoved me away, so his co-defendant could try and access my account. I did not pose any kind of threat to him. Over 1.5 years later, I am still in physical therapy twice a week, as well as trauma therapy weekly. There are so many normal things that I can't do, like tie my shoe or cut my own toenails on that foot. Rolling over in bed is painful, so is putting on a sock. I can't wear jeans or any type of heavy coarse material because of the extensive nerve damage, as well as the bullet fragments that still remain in there, which will, I am told, likely be painful for years and can also cause lead toxicity. I cannot tolerate extreme temperatures, meaning I can't go outside and enjoy the snow or relaxing in a hot tub. I can't even take a bath in my own tub because of mobility issues. Sleep is very difficult, either due to pain or not being able to shut my brain off from the nightmares and related anxiety. The sun shining on my leg hurts. I have to use a seatbelt clip to keep the lap belt from putting pressure on my thigh. Getting up and down every single time is effort. Most daily household chores are difficult at best, if even possible. There is no getting down on the floor to play or getting down on the sand at the beach to look for sea glass. Even putting air in my tires is painful, not to mention how difficult yard work is. I was out of my home for 6 weeks between a hospital and rehab center, during which time I had to find care for Haley, who also had to be out of our home and away from her life as she knew it. A portion of her childhood was robbed from her that night, because she was propelled into being a caregiver instead of just being a child. After I came home, she panicked every time I made a sound because moving hurt. Without batting an eye, she took on the role of homemaker and caretaker, tending to almost everything that needed to be done and waiting on me hand and foot, even when I tried explaining to her that I needed to at least try, because even though it hurt, it was part of my healing process. She was and still is the reason I have not given up. She should not be carrying the level of anxiety that this has caused her. The amount of guilt that I have carried for this is beyond huge, but thanks to my trauma therapist, I'm realizing that guilt is not something for me to carry. She defines guilt as having the intent to do harm. I am not the one that intended to do any harm that night. I should have been able to make a quick stop at an ATM in my own community without the fear of being robbed and shot. Even if Kolby says it was not his original intent to shoot me, it was his intent to rob me with a gun, therefore causing harm. I would also like the court to consider that if the gun was only supposed to be a scare tactic, it should not have been loaded. I can't begin to describe what fireworks, a car backfiring, or a popping balloon do to me. I'm a prisoner in my own community, no longer comfortable out in public, especially when there are young men with hoodies, even in the middle of the day. I will not use any outdoor ATM no matter what time of day it is. I'm not comfortable outside after dark anymore, even in my own yard, so that is yet another passion of mine that has been taken away from me because I love astronomy. I have missed attending so many things, from memorials of friends and relatives that have passed away, to traveling, to seeing musician friends perform. Everything takes so much effort and is painful. Another passion of mine is photography, and I can no longer go out on nature hike photo shoots like I used to. I have been a Seahawks season ticket holder since the Kingdom, and even those games are a challenge now, because even though I was blessed by being given a scooter to make getting to the games possible, I have to deal with the fireworks, which sometimes I can handle and sometimes they come close to breaking me. PTSD and anxiety are very real. I am the current Scoutmaster for a local Boy Scout troop in my community, which I have belonged to for almost 22 years. I haven't been to summer camp with my Scouts for 2 consecutive summers, nor was I able to attend Sea Base in the Bahamas with them this past summer, which was a trip we started planning over 2 years ago because of this crime. I will also miss next summer's camp because you have to register early, and I am not able to pass the physical yet. I can't walk any kind of distance without using some kind of aid, and I used to walk 2 to 3 miles every day on my lunch break. Numerous troop activities have had to be canceled with my Scouts because we didn't have enough adults to be able to support them. My Scouts are also victims of this crime. I had a surprise visit when I was in rehab by 4 of my Eagle Scouts that I had not seen for quite some time, and they told me they wanted to come see me to show that they supported me the way I had supported them for so many years. I kept thinking how different these young men were from the youthful offenders that tried to rob me and shot me. I'm very proud of the number of Scouts that have earned the rank of Eagle in my troop over the years. I will add several of them come from broken homes, some experienced life with chemical dependency, as well as growing up with other dysfunctions and special needs. Yet each one of them made life choices that helped them achieve the rank of Eagle Scout and have careers and be successful contributors in today's society. They are perfect examples that a less than perfect childhood doesn't give anyone the right to use it as an excuse to commit crimes and to not be held accountable for their actions. I missed work for 8 months, and then I was only able to go back for 4 hours a day for several months. I was released to work full-time in May, but in a completely different position at a significant pay cut because I was unable to stay focused and concentrate on the fast-paced, extremely high attention to detail that my previous project management position required. My coworkers, my supervisor, and my customers are also victims of this crime. The financial stress of what happened to me is unreal. I understand insurance companies have nothing to do with this process, but because of this crime, I am having to deal with it and have been dealing with it since the crime happened, with no end in sight. I cannot spend all day, every day, trying to talk to all of these people because I have to work to pay my bills. Another huge way this crime has affected my life was preventing me to be able to take in my great-nephew, who is turning 2 later this month and is now in the foster care system. Another victim of this crime, and there's no recovering from that or the division in my family that has resulted because of this crime. I had to make the difficult decision to resign from my volunteer position with the Booster Club for the Seahawks because physically sitting through meetings and necessary computer time my position required and ongoing anxiety that affects my level of concentration on a daily basis kept me from donating the time and energy required. More victims. And I will tell you that our Booster Club donated over 38,000 hours of community service and over $600,000 in charitable donations last year. We take our volunteer work very seriously. The nightmares continue. Literally, The memory of my then 10-year-old child hysterical because she didn't know what to do after witnessing this horrific event. The vision of my co-defendant in the ATM video, the memory of being shot, of being told that my femoral artery was missed by mere millimeters. I could have bled out in 3 minutes. This could be a very different case. The constant pain in my thigh, the swelling in my knee, which I have been told may never go away, the constant discovery of things I can no longer physically or mentally do, the swelling in my ankle after sitting or standing for any amount of time, which causes me to have to be very careful about shoes, weight gain from being sedentary and extremely high cortisol levels, constant irritability from always being in pain is exhausting. All results of this crime. I pray that Kolby will learn that while he is free to choose his actions, he is not free to choose the consequences of those actions, and that he will make better decisions with his life going forward. I also pray that someday our judicial system will not put victims of violent crimes through continuing additional trauma while tending to the rights of criminals. I feel as though the wheels of justice are not only unbalanced, but they are all different sizes that don't have proper air pressure. And please don't take that personally.
Yeah, I appreciate that example, that analogy.
I want to talk for a moment about the youthful offender consideration that asks us to consider that defendants between the ages of 18 and 25 are technically still kids and not mature enough to be held accountable for their actions. Yet this country sends 18-year-olds to war to defend our country without batting an eye. These kids are allowed to purchase alcohol at the adult age of 21, yet the court system still calls them kids. In my opinion, this is hypocrisy at its finest because you can't have it both ways. If someone is mature enough to go to war, to purchase alcohol, and to vote, they are also mature enough to serve the appropriate time for the crimes they chose to commit. This youthful consideration law doesn't help, it doesn't deter crime, it is an enabler, because offenders are not being held accountable and given even little, if any, adequate consequences. There was a very recent case where a youthful offender raped and strangled 2 girls in Oklahoma and is actually serving no time because of this consideration. Kolby Delamar and his co-defendant made the conscious decision to try and take the easy way to get money instead of earning it. To quote Peter Falk from the old TV show Beretta, "If you can't do the time, don't do the crime." Victims should not have to stand before this court and spill their life story to relive the previous traumas of their lives, but here and now I feel compelled to do just that because I've seen how the defense proceeds in these cases, and it is likely they're going to tell us we need to be considerate of the defendant's childhood and give him grace for making poor choices. My childhood is filled with trauma. A very small sampling includes my parents divorcing when I was very young. My grandmother and father were alcoholics. I witnessed my grandfather pulling a gun on my dad when I was about 8. One of my stepfathers molested me, as did one of my mom's boyfriends. And as a result of telling my mom, I was constantly reminded that it was my fault she was alone because I told her if she stayed with him, I would leave. I have hit rock bottom in many ways in my lifetime, losing important relationships, jobs, and housing. And while I have made many, many mistakes in my life, I never once ever considered it would be okay to go out and commit armed robbery, never mind shoot someone. Yes, I agreed to this plea deal, but please let me be perfectly clear. I'm not okay with it, but I need closure. I need to get this behind me. While he was unable to steal any money from me, Kolby did steal my peace of mind and injured me to an extent that I may never completely recover. Given the dates of the crime and arrest, Haley and I have already served more time than he has. He sentenced both of us to many more years than he will ever serve, not to mention that after shooting me, he wanted to go to another ATM and try again because he didn't get any money from me. Fortunately, for some unknown citizen, his co-defendant refused. We can't fix all of this overnight, but we have to start somewhere. We need to stop sensationalizing violence as a form of entertainment with video games, TVs, and movies. Laws need to change, parents need to be able to parent, Teachers need to be able to discipline, and we need to set better examples. When I see adults parking in no parking zones just so they can hop out and use an ATM, that just shows our kids we don't have to follow the rules. When criminals of violent crimes are not held accountable, they have no reason to not do it again, never mind that others see that crime is okay. This past spring, I had to make the very difficult decision to refuse to sign an Eagle Scout application because I found out that the scout in question broke the first point of the scout law by proving himself very significantly to not be trustworthy. I found out later that he had gotten away with something similar in school, so apparently he thought it would be okay to try again. It absolutely gutted me because there's no opportunity for a redo, but it was the right and responsible thing for me to do as a scoutmaster. If Kolby's bullet had hit a few millimeters over, there would be no redo. I would like to know how Kolby would feel if this had happened to his grandmother, mother, or an aunt. I will also never understand why someone who has already pled to 2 felonies is almost given the same amount of time in court that I am. I just feel it's another example of adding trauma to the victim, and more focus needs to be.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just do want to say that I had offered to set this hearing as a full day so that.
But we would have had to move it, which would have meant another delay, and that's more.
I understand that, but I don't have control over when these come to me or how many sentencings I'm given in an afternoon, and I would have gladly moved it, and so within a very short period of time. But I understand.
I've already had to take so much time off of work for this. It's just, I need it done.
Okay, I understand.
And we have spent a lot of time trying to fine tune speakers and the amount of time people are speaking, and it just is this past week has been incredibly stressful.
I'm sorry for that.
But with that, know that with a little help from my friends, Haley and I will survive because I refuse to let the criminals win. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. You did